All right, welcome back, everyone. Today's a special video. This is the 1-year anniversary of the 10x Booster Pack Investment Challenge. So this is going to be a 2023 year-end recap, going back from Sun and Moon base set all the way to our present-day Scarlet and Violet set. So to give a little background on this, we started this in December of 2022. So yes, a full year. So basically, the premise of this was I was going to be purchasing 10 of every booster pack as far back as Sun and Moon base set up to today. So this includes, General Mills, McDonald's, etc. Those trick or trade booster packs. And as we kind of move forward, I'm going to be continuing to kind of add, um, you know, basically to the total fund as new sets are released. And then for those sets that I think they're a good opportunity in, I'll be increasing quantities of those select sets, obviously, if opportunities present themselves. So obviously continue providing updates via video, YouTube. So this is our 6th video. And just to kind of, as a disclaimer, all prices are pulled from TCG Player for consistencies, just so, I understand that there are better alternatives or deals that you can find in other places, but just to be consistent, we pulled everything from TCG Player. So it's apples to apples comparison. So the 2023 review, how did we do? So we saw a 49% annual rate of return in 2023. This is based on the cost basis of 49.10 against the total value today. So it's not quite 365 days. So you're getting a little bit more rate of return there based on how that's calculated. It's calculated, basically extrapolates that out to 365 days versus right now, I think it's like 359 or 360 days. So overall, we saw about a $2,340 return, equating to about a 49%. So what this does is it gives us the total, obviously, return based on just your cost basis and the total value in the portfolio right now. So what it doesn't do is it doesn't factor out any immediate gains. So for example, if I go out and most recently pick up Cosmic Eclipse for $10 a pack and they're selling for $20 a pack, this is going to calculate it in terms of an annual rate of return. So I broke this out into 2 different ways. I broke this out into how much did we return from a portfolio perspective, including these inefficiencies, what I just described. And then also, I broke that out and removed the inefficiencies. So if I bought all of our booster packs at market price at the beginning of the year, what would be the rate of return? And that rate of return is about 28.61%. So looking at this, basically what this means is that 20% of that 49% of return is due to me going out and finding and identifying really good deals and capitalizing on those. So through 2023, we spent approximately, $1,900 and change. Starting cost basis, basically, when I say cost basis, I mean how much of my own money was sunk into this was at $3,000. So specifically, $337 of that was spent on new sets. So from Crown Zenith all the way to Paradox Rift. $240 was spent on 60 Sword and Shield Celebrations packs, $682 for 101 Cosmic Eclipse packs, $425 on an additional 10 Team Up packs, and $275 on an additional 10 Shining Legends packs. And I do want to note, with each purchase above, that's obviously a large amount of money. I almost always sell off or move other product to offset the cost of these above. So don't want to encourage people to go out and leverage and put these on a credit card. You're going to be, if you're carrying a balance on a credit card to carry these things, it kind of defeats the purpose of going and investing in them. So again, I kind of already spoke to the inefficiencies and the difference between the 49% and the 28.61%. So I guess in summary, 2023 was a very solid year with the overall portfolio returning about 49%, and 20% of that return roughly was captured via inefficiencies in the market. Essentially finding really, really good deals and capitalizing on them. Now, these are just a couple plots just to give you a visual. In the top right, you can see Sword and Shield packs. This is the total value of all the packs in this portfolio. I didn't create one for Scarlet and Violet just because it's so small and it's new and it didn't really add a lot of value to this. So you could see in the top right, we had a starting cost basis of around $890. Um, and essentially, if you remove that and look at from beginning to end, so the $1,086 data point there on the left, that's actually the start of January, and $889 was the end of December of 2022. So Sword and Shield was very, very stagnant all year, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. And then Sun and Moon on the bottom right, obviously that is the driver for the entire fund, right? So we started out, all of our Sun and Moon packs were at roughly a value of about $3,500, and by the end we were sitting at roughly $5,750, and that gives us basically an overall fund um, performance of starting at around 49.10 and ending at about 72.50. So again, performance heavily driven by Sun and Moon. Sword and Shield very stagnant, and Scarlet and Violet actually declined, even though um, it really didn't have much of an impact because Scarlet and Violet, there's not a lot of money in that area because we only have 4 or 5 sets, and I only have 10 packs of each of those. I'm currently holding right now. Current set list and pack quantities. This is just for reference. This shows you all the different sets, their release dates, and the quantities in this fund that make up the numbers I just showed you. So as of right now, we have 44 unique sets in here with a total of 801 booster packs. The Scarlet and Violet set performance. So just breaking them out by era. Best performer, Paradox Rift, 7% increase. Worst performer, base set, 26% down since its release in March. Key takeaways. I mean, this is as expected, right? So obviously, when you have a new set dropped, a new era dropped, it's a new mechanic. They're not the most, I would say, um, charismatic sets. So it's usually the players that get the most out of it, and the collectors tend to kind of almost reject it, just like with anything else. Human psychology, they hate change. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. This is just what we expect. We see it from era to era. This is not something new. At this point, I would just say that this is going to be an opportunity, right? You have, for example, base set sitting at 240 a pack. I mean, that's that's pretty low. Even if you kind of just set some money aside month to month and pick up a little bit at a time, you could be, you know, finding deals even below the $2 mark. Especially with like the wholesale program, there's a lot of stuff that you can pick up for super cheap. So right now, as we kind of move further into Scarlet and Violet, there's going to be, I guess, continue to be opportunities to jump on these. One thing to note, Sword and Shield base set, which was released in February of 2020, was sitting at the low $3 mark per pack before making a run this year into the high $4 mark. So it basically took 3 years to make any kind of movement past that $3 mark. Um, and that set had arguably lower print, right? So lower supply than these Scarlet and Violet sets. So, I guess the question is, will we need to wait another 3 years to see early Scarlet and Violet sets make the same price movements? So it is something to keep in mind. If you are picking this stuff up, don't expect these to move for at least 3 to 4 years. And it may be different than Sword Shield base set because we're obviously getting more of this stuff now than we were during Sword and Shield, at least the early Sword and Shield sets. So just something to keep in mind. But overall, Scarlet and Violet sets performed as expected in 2023. Getting to Sword and Shield. So best performer was base set. It was up 44% from 325 a pack to 468 a pack. Worst performer was Crown Zenith, down 25%. This by no means means that Crown Zenith was the worst set. Actually, it could probably be argued that it was the top set or top 3 set in the Sword and Shield clip. But that dropped from release around $5 to about $370 a pack recently, and that's probably due to the ETB reprint that we just got. So, Sword and Shield is going to be this era. It's going to be the era where people are going to make and lose. I think, the most money over the next 2 years, and I say that because we're getting into the 3-year mark for those 2021 sets, and it's kind of funny, if you look at the earliest Sword and Shield sets, the first five are all up at least 10%. And then if you look at the bottom five, which are arguably better sets than the first five, those are all down significantly. And that's just a function of supply and demand. And then if you look in the middle, you have some that are down, some that are up, some that are kind of stagnant around the 2%, 8%, 1%, 2%, right? So this table is a great visual of basically the sets, how they progress through time and the supply on the market. So, you know, I think, you know, we're going to see some price movements of these sets. I think the question is, should we expect those 2021 sets to begin taking off in 2024? Or, that was right around the time in COVID where the supply really jumped. Are we going to have to wait another year? And are the 2021 sets, because they're so easily available and attainable on the market right now, are those going to be kind of delayed another year to where we've seen, that Sword and Shield base set kind of jumping up there in that 44% mark? So just things to consider, right? I'm not suggesting you should dump your life savings into these 2021 sets, but it's just things that you need to be considering. And if you're using other sets and other eras as an example, and you're basing it on that, you need to understand the differences between those eras. So I would say, overall, and this says Scarlet and Violet sets performed as expected. That should say Sword and Shield. I'll correct that after. But they did perform as expected, right? You have the early sets which are at their 3-year mark, starting to kind of jump up, and actually 4-year mark for some of those earlier ones, and then the ones that we just kind of came out of 2022 that were printed and released in 2022. You really see those are still trying to pretty much settle and find their bottom before we can say that those are kind of ready to take the next step and really make an upward push. So Sun and Moon, I don't think it's any surprise. You look over to the right, it's pretty much all green. Best performer, are we surprised to see Team up there? 158% from $20 to $52. Pretty crazy. Didn't expect that to happen. I don't think anybody did. But if you look back, it definitely makes sense. If you look at the cards that are in it, if you look at the short print run that it had, it's a great set. And I think it's not going to surprise me if even if that set dips, it goes up. I don't think anything that happens with that set is going to surprise us. Worst performer, Detective Pikachu. I think a lot of that has to do with lack of demand and just so few sales. So not really a ton of emphasis on that, but that was the only sole negative in the Sun and Moon block in 2023. The only other two that were below a 10% increase were Burning Shadows and Shining Legends. So overall, Sun and Moon just crushed it this year. We did have like several restocks and discoveries and like tins of some sealed product, like Sun and Moon product that you could pick up on Pokemon Center. So for example, one of the big ones I capitalized on, I was able to pick up 100 plus Cosmic Eclipse packs for around the $6 to $7 mark, and obviously that significantly influenced the the result of the return in this fund, because I am keeping all of them and I'm putting them back as an investment. But that being said, and I'll summarize this on the next chart, even if you take out the inefficiencies and the wins that I just described, like the Cosmic Eclipse win, you know, all the booster packs combined, you're still looking at a 29% annual return for 2023, which is awesome. So even considering all the restocks, those instances weren't enough and there wasn't enough supply to have any kind of significant downward pressure. And we saw, I guess big thing here is we saw our first Sun and Moon set eclipse the $50 mark. I personally thought for a while it was going to be that, what's it called? Dragon Majesty, right? That Dragon Majesty was sitting at, mid 30s at the beginning of the year, and Team Up was only at 20, right? So Team Up just shot right past Dragon Majesty and became the first Sun and Moon set to hit that $50 mark. Two other sets sitting above 20 at this point, and 6 others, right? We're talking about like the team up era, right? Your Unified Minds, your Unbroken Bonds, your Cosmic Eclipses. All those sets are poised and ready to kind of make that next jump up into the $20 area. So the question is, will this explosive trend continue into 2024, or will prices kind of stagger as people start to pay more attention to the 2021 Sword and Shield clip? You know, it's going to be, I guess, you look at these sets, um, you're not going to get as much for your money, right? If you have to spend $18 for one Unbroken Bonds pack, but you can spend $18 to get 6 Silver Tempest packs or 6 Fusion Strike packs, it kind of makes more sense, or it may make more sense to go for the Fusion Strike in that scenario, right? So these are the kinds of things that people are looking at, and they're trying to figure out where's my money going to give me the biggest bang for my buck, right? So that's going to be a question going into 2024. Are these increases sustainable, or are we going to see things in the Sun and Moon era kind of start to die off? And kind of wrapping things up here, I'm trying to get through this quickly, but the I guess the key takeaways and focuses for 2024, right? So again, 49% annual rate of return, that knocks the S&P 500 out of the water. I couldn't have taken $4,900, putting it in the stock market and gotten this back this year. Even considering the inefficiencies, if you just looked at the booster packs and if you picked everything up at market price at the beginning of the year, you were looking still at a 29% rate of return. That is pretty crazy for a trading card game. And I'll jump down to the bottom. Remember, this is not financial advice. I like doing this. I like creating the content. I like putting together the numbers. I'm just simply sharing, where I'm putting my funds. And this is for information only, right? So if I lose everything tomorrow, this is something I've built up over time, right? It's not like I'm going to lose this and then, I'm going to have to change my lifestyle, right? I can afford to lose these. It's been kind of a slow process. So I urge you guys to really just make smart decisions and make sure that before you jump into any of this stuff, you really make sure that you can afford to lose it. There's no guarantee. This is not a necessity. They're just trading cards at the end of the day. So be smart with your money, and just keep that stuff in mind. And kind of focuses for 2024. Likely going to pick up some, probably 2021 Sword and Shield sets before they begin their upward trajectory, especially if I can find some really, really good deals and it makes sense at the time. So obviously, like when I'm making large purchases, I have to be able to move some other stuff. I'm not, I'm not putting my own money into this, and then leaving it there. At least that's the goal. I'm going to be putting, money into it and then taking things out by selling other product that I have, typically from the wholesale program at super cheap. So I already began kind of adding these celebrations. I was able to pick up 60 of these towards the end of 2023. And then just kind of in general, I'm going to be watching a lot of these $15 to $20 Sun and Moon packs, and expecting and kind of hoping that they begin taking off in 2023, assuming they kind of continue to follow the trajectory they took in this past year. So yeah, so overall, I'm super excited to keep this going. This has been kind of the most exciting part of my year in terms of like the collecting space. It's been fun, being able to kind of just diversify and really have a stake in multiple sets, not just, a booster box case of this set or that set, because that's just not sustainable. I can't put that amount of money into it. So if you guys stuck around this long, thanks for watching. Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys next year.